Around 5,000 years ago, one of the largest and most powerful empires in history emerges on the banks of the Nile. Ancient Egypt. Monumental temples, tombs and metropolises bear witness to the power of this fascinating civilization. Yet Egyptian culture is also considered strange and mysterious to this day. International researchers explain the world of the godlike pharaohs and the everyday life of their subjects. The Egyptian Empire endured for 3,000 years. What is the secret of success of this advanced civilization on the Nile?
Camel, get up.
This is brilliant. This is obviously an iconic image. Taking a camel ride by the pyramids, surely it encapsulates the spirit of Egypt.
But such an image is completely misleading. Because there weren't any camels here when the pyramids were built 4,500 years ago. And that's the thing. Ancient Egypt is instantly recognisable, but all too often completely misunderstood.
A narrow green ribbon in the middle of endless desert. The Nile, the lifeline of Egypt. Its water transforms parched soils into productive farmland. The first houses and settlements emerge from its mud.
It was the mud of Egypt that really made it successful.
The history of Egypt is the history of the Nile.
For millennia, the Grand Pyramids of Egypt have towered over the desert sands. Everything about the great ancient civilization that once seized the lands remained a mystery. That is, until July 19th, 1799. A French soldier discovers a large stone about 35 miles east of Alexandria during Napoleon Bonaparte's Egyptian expedition, unearthing a written language that had been dead for thousands of years. The translations would prove to be the key to unlocking the secrets of an entire civilization.
So, I'm gonna try and change that.
Good luck.
شكرا جزيلا.
The Great Pyramid of Giza, final resting place of King Khufu, over 140 metres from bottom to top. No wonder it still pulls in the crowds, and the occasional Egyptologist.
It's hard to really get it into words, but we are now entering into the depths of this iconic monument of ancient Egypt.
Yet our story begins in the Sahara. The Arabs call it As-Sahra al-Kubra, the Great Desert, or Ba Bila Ma, the sea without water. Throughout the year, extreme drought prevails. In summer, temperatures rise up to 60 degrees Celsius, a landscape of extremes. Yet even here, people live. Nomadic desert dwellers. Most of them are Arabs, Berbers, or Tuareg. You meet them mainly on the fringes of the dry desert, where they raise cattle, goats, and sheep.
Egypt is the gift of the Nile. That's what Herodotus, the father of history, said. Since the Nile is the lifeline, as it provided Egypt with water for the cultivation of crops, which led to the burgeoning of civilization all along the length of the Nile Valley. The river strip that divided the Egyptian territory into two parts provided a favorable environment for the rise of civilization when the Nile Valley began in the Miocene times, cutting it into its current shape.
It's a very busy, iconic monument, though. And as we set foot on this journey upwards, it's a brilliant metaphor for the way that the ancient Egyptian civilization literally rose up from the earth to a real zenith. So come with me and I'll show you something really brilliant.
Because the pyramids are really only the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, flipping out.
So all this was a big city capital.
Overwhelming in size. That is absolutely superb.
In this series, I'm going to explore the story of what I consider to be the world's greatest civilization. More than 4,000 years of history that has shaped our world and left unmistakable marks that can still be read today.
Their homeland stretches from the Atlantic Ocean to the Red Sea. A desert continent, 9 million square kilometers of nothing but sand, stone and rubble. Life is found here only at a few waterholes. There are 5 such oases in the Egyptian Sahara today, green islands in the middle of a hostile, barren landscape. A plateau in the extreme southwest of Egypt, however, suggests that the Sahara was not always a desert. Underway in one of the driest regions in the world. No rain has fallen here for decades. The Gulf Kabir Plateau rises some 300 meters from the surrounding desert. In Wadi Sura, the Valley of Images, traces of the early days of sedentary man have been found. Drawings on rock overhangs more than 8,000 years old. Stone Age people left their handprints here. Hidden at the foot of the plateau is a cave. The site was discovered only about 20 years ago. Its rock walls are covered all over with figures. Men hunting, children playing. They show that back then, antelopes, gazelles and giraffes must still have lived in the Sahara. However, the cave is named after these grotesque figures. Headless monsters whose meaning still puzzles researchers today.
The various geographical resources effectively contributed to the state's foundation as a result of the annual floods that spread the fertile soil to the east and west over the centuries. Mud deposits built up. When the water recedes and flows along its banks, the agricultural year begins, making Egypt one of the first agricultural communities that ever existed in human history. At the end of the Paleolithic era, there was a widespread production of arrows, harpoons, querns, sewed skins, boneworks, and pottery. Carbon-14 tests, on the other hand, were used by researchers to demonstrate that corn was harvested in a Neolithic silo on the edge of Fayum between 4600 and 4250 BC.
I'll be looking into every nook and cranny. From little-known tombs.
It's staggering. I've never ever been into a tomb quite like this before.
To the hidden corners of vast monuments.
It's like being on top of the world, isn't it?
Now we are in the top of Karnak.
So it's really no surprise that weird and wonderful theories about ancient Egypt crop up all the time. But what I find so amazing is that this most intriguing civilization was actually created by people not so very different from you and me. And that's the story I want to tell. A story full of secret treasures, dark deeds, and sometimes controversial theories. This mask was originally made for someone else. And for the first time, I'll be piecing it all together. From the earliest Egyptians to the last of the pharaohs.
Wow, look at that, look at that. That is so beautiful.
Welcome to my story of ancient Egypt.
Yet how do these paintings full of life fit in with the desert that surrounds them? Another cave, also on the Gilf Kebir plateau, provides a clue. The cave of the swimmers. It contains representations of swimming people. The oldest are more than 10,000 years old. Swimming people in a dust-dried desert? The petroglyphs are not the only evidence that people once lived here thousands of years ago, and that the environment must have looked very different. A few years ago, prehistorian Heiko Riemer and his team surveyed the entire area around the cave and discovered something amazing. Layers of ancient sediment. They are clear traces of a lake in the middle of the desert. In fact, about 10,000 years ago, the landscape at the foot of Gilf Kebir looked much greener.
The big question is, how did ancient Egypt begin? Where did the first Egyptians and their extraordinary culture come from? This immortal civilization was thousands of years in the making, so to pull it all together is a daunting task. But bear with me, as it's utterly fascinating. But we won't begin with massive monuments, but with some enigmatic clues you could easily miss. This is Kirta, around 100 kilometres south of Luxor. Unless you're an archaeologist, you almost certainly won't have heard of it. Because there aren't any great temples or royal tombs to admire. But high in the cliffs, you can see real signs of ancient life here. Thousands of years before the pyramids. And this is where our story begins.
Where there is desert now, there was lush life for thousands of years. Huge herds once roamed the fertile plains of North Africa. Model calculations have unraveled the secret of the Green Sahara. Whether it rains in the Sahara or not depends on the monsoon wind. And about 12,000 years ago, the climate of North Africa changes. It's the end of an ice age. The northern hemisphere gets more solar heat, since at the time the inclination of the Earth's axis is particularly large. And that leads to monsoon winds from the sea into the land. They bring humid sea air into the Sahara and allow the desert to blossom. Alas, this blooming does not last forever.